what we're going to present to you is an experiment in changing those dynamics. I always say the major theme of this is, what do you do when you have a new animal in the zoo? A new classroom, a new learning space that is unprecedented to faculty and technology and everything else, okay? Which is what we experience, what the experience at University of California, Riverside, and about 8 other universities have experienced very recently in the last few years, okay? So I've introduced the people here. Kim DeBacco can't be here today. She had to travel. But what you're looking at there is basically the geometry of learning, which is our effort to bring together research and collaborative experience around using these unique spaces. The way we're going to do it is Israel is going to present. The reason is because at UCR, they came up here, looked at our spaces. We built a space in 2015. Marc will talk about it. They went back and built a 400-seat in the round. And then a year ago, I went down and visited that, and we found that together we had a lot of symmetry. We ended up publishing an article about that, and we're moving forward. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay? So I'd like to introduce Israel to talk about his experiences with his folks at UCR.
Thank you, John.
I should say that this is meant to be a discussion. We're not going to do Q&A at the end. We're going to talk as we go. So you have to participate. Okay? I'll make sure you do.
You will be graded on participation.
I teach philosophy, so I do grade for participation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Israel Fletes, and I'm from UC Riverside. I'm from the Center for Teaching and Learning. We're primarily focused on faculty engagement, but we work directly with the central IT office on the technical side and all the technology that went into the facility. We were part of the design, part of the thinking. Of course, it was very heavily copied or mostly copied off of Oregon State's the center here, teaching in the round lecture hall. This is our space. It seats 404 students. For many years, I worked with an instructional designer in our space. We good? Okay. Okay, I can just focus on this one. For many years, I worked with an instructional designer in our space, Dr. Cholewczynski, who would say, anything beyond the third row is distance learning. Okay, at that point, the students are disengaged sometimes. They're in their own world. What a round lecture hall does really is it brings everybody in the space. I think and this room feels much deeper than that space feels once you're in the middle of that podium or the middle of that the room there. Technology, it's got 8 projectors. It's really a 2-source display. You can display 2 sources at a time, but it's actually displayed 4 times so that every student can watch from every angle of the room. Now, there are ways to cheat that, but we don't want to do that because then we'll affect the line of sight, of course, on the matrix switcher. But we do have 3 microphones. One of them is a handheld, 2 lapels, and we also have what we call the pillow mic, okay? So the faculty do throw it. Question, but these are really neat for engagement, of course. For the most part, faculty tend to stick to the podium, to the lapel mic area, and that's one of our lessons learned that I'll talk about in a little while. Document camera on the podium, the monitor and the computer, of course, Apple TV and Solstice, more things I'll talk about in a few minutes. HDMI input, PTZ camera, the podium is motorized, it goes up and down, so depending on your preference. And the Extron touch panel that controls all the media in the room, and it's also remotely managed, remotely supported, remotely secured, and monitored. So we try to leverage IP-based support devices, or support for all the devices. And this is pretty much the campus standard at UCR. Every projector is on the network, every computer is on the network. Our media management system is based on Extron. So everything is in the network. We apply even timers in the evening at 11:01 p.m. Turn off all projectors. Things like that to ensure that things are not being left on by faculty. If someone disconnects the projector, we'll get an alert. Someone's disconnected projector. Can you please check on it before someone walks off with it? So that's been very helpful for many years. This follows the same standard. The help alert was something that was very helpful for our faculty, so they can call and we'll get immediate support. And that's the important part. Everybody else on campus, when you put a support ticket, it will take 24, 48, 72, 96, whatever many hours. But the technology team are the ones that will be there within 2 minutes. The first response is to call on that phone that's immediate to the left, hanging from that podium. Every classroom has a phone, a campus phone. It is restricted to campus only, but it's designed for the tech team to be able to communicate with the faculty when they have an issue during lecture. I want this to be very interactive. Please ask me questions, stop me anytime. Go ahead.
There you go.
So when faculty are pressing that little red button on the panel, are you guys, is the IT team, they go on site, are they like just trying to troubleshoot right then and there, or do they have like a sense of what's happening prior to?
So the protocol is three steps. The first step is to call, and we'll call the faculty. I mean, if they press the button, they need some support. So we'll call in the middle of the lecture, and they will say what the issue is. And they will say, I cannot get the image up on screen. So we don't know what they might have pressed, a freeze button or something on the panel. So we just said, just please resend your image. Click your source, click the projector, it'll refresh the send, and you'll have a fresh image, and that'll solve it. So there are little tricks like that sometimes we can walk them through the phone. And there are sometimes problems where it's something that just terribly is not working out right. Then that our staff, and usually our students are the ones that tend to make that initial call. Our staff then will jump in and see if they can remotely access something and see if there's an issue they can solve. And number three is we'll find our fastest runner, and we'll have that runner run across campus into that lecture hall. But I will say that this lecture hall has quite a number of general assignment classrooms, so we do have techs already stationed nearby, so they can just go up and provide that support. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. UC Davis, yes.
Yes, sir.
They're working out when they're not. They're like firemen. Go ahead.
So I imagine there's lecture capture in this new room, correct?
Yes.
What do you do for camera placement for picking up a round room?
So that is one of the challenges, because we only have one camera. So we do tell the faculty where that one camera is. And if faculty is teaching the way we would like that person to teach, which is engage every side of the room, there will be times when that person is giving their back to the camera. So that is kind of expected. Mm-hmm. The microphone capture, the lecture capture, we have, we're based on UJA lecture capture. And whatever they're presenting on I think it's a right screen, whatever they're presenting on the right screen is being recorded as part of that lecture capture. But there are times when the faculty would be turning their back to the camera. Yeah, that is an issue.
Did you get any pushback on where are the chalkboards from a certain faculty, or?
We get that all over campus, yes. Yeah. But especially in this room. In this room, we do have the quarterly, or right before every term begins, we bring all the faculty and have them get used to the room, see what the features are, what are the replacements to the whiteboards, what are the replacements to some of the other technology they may be expecting in other spaces. But for the most part, we haven't had that many issues. I will say it's been my experience over the past 4 years that we've had this room, that it follows the traditional format of other rooms. I cannot say that every faculty is maximizing the use of a teaching in the round, right? That's something that we are working on. My office is working with those faculty on the engagement piece, but the lecture capture is something that we have to work through, because the original design was to have four 4 cameras, and one of them was installed, the rest have not been installed yet, but then how do you switch? So that's something else we need to work through. Another question up here.
I see you got the document camera, but is there also any active annotation by any chance?
The screen is an interactive screen. You can annotate over it. It's
Roger
a
that.
24-inch touch panel interactive display. Thank you. So that solves part of it. It doesn't solve everything. I will cover this right now. If you look at that display, it's 24-inch. It's nice, it's big. It's got an arm that you can move it all over, up, down, whatever. So we try to keep it down, but many faculty will grab it and will put it up because that's what they wanted to see. What happens is they create this division now. Students behind that monitor are being hidden by that faculty. And then we were learned over the years that faculty tend to focus on everywhere except that one area, right? So when they're engaging students, they're engaging everywhere else except that one area. So every time I go into that wrong room, the first thing I do is just pull that monitor down and hide it as much as possible so that it's not blocking the eye contact, the person, like where Lynne is right here. Okay. I think I covered managed desktop, so we can remotely access the computer if anybody is stuck on anything, and we can try to provide support. If for some reason there is a network problem or some kind of issue that we cannot solve remotely, like I mentioned, that fast student that's running across, he's going to bring in a laptop, he's going to plug it in, and he's going to get that faculty to continue his lecture. So the idea is to provide immediate support and minimal impact to instructional time. Every morning, go in, restock batteries for the microphones, check everything's working, make sure that the mouse is working, make sure nothing is missing. Every evening, go in and do the same thing, lock things up, secure items. Once in the middle of the day, depending if it's a typical quarter where it's being the lectures are hour after hour after hour and hardly any breaks, so we'll go like at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock and then restock batteries, make sure things are okay. Now, at the beginning of the term, we do have hourly visits. It's kind of the meet and greets. Every first week of instruction, we do this to every lecture hall around campus. Now, we do invite the faculty to an orientation of the room. We do have them come in. We ask that they test their presentations, try their teaching style, whatever they prefer, get used to the room, get a feel for the room. But then once the quarter begins, once the new term begins, the first week, every single hour, we have one of our techs stop by and check with the faculty, make sure everything's going okay, make sure that nothing's missing, that they're not struggling with anything, maybe even wait for the first few minutes, and then they move out to the central workstation down on the first floor of that building. My office works on the active learning portion of it, the pedagogy. We have instructional designers that are working with faculty in there, try to maximize the use and the features of the room. For example, if you look at this picture, you'll notice that 2 rows are on the same level, and then there's a step up. There's another 2 rows, another step up. The first row in that one section is on a swivel. The chairs are all swivel, and they can turn back to the second row. The idea is to try to break it apart into smaller groups and be able to have some peer-based learning. Now, the challenge is that not every faculty wants to do it, especially in a lecture hall of 400 students. We do have a few faculty members. One of them that comes to mind is Professor of Physics, Ward Byerman, who actually came up here once. And he's very much into teaching. He is one of our senior faculty members on campus, but he actually adopts and makes very good use of the room, even worked with his iPad and display wireless to make sure he was pacing around and making sure everybody was engaged in the lecture and breaking students apart as needed. We have workshops on teaching in the round, try to get past faculty that's taught in that space, trying to get new faculty that may be interested in teaching in that space, get used to and hear from their colleagues. We do have, of course, the hourly visits and the orientations. So, a few of the lessons, a few of usage, things that may follow at your campus as well, but I want to mention it here. We're doing okay on time?
Getting close.
All right. The classroom opened in fall of 2020, right in the middle of COVID. So when we came back, We have very limited use of the space, so it wasn't our grand opening. It wasn't the whole excitement that I was looking forward to for years. It didn't happen that way. It was actually a little dull. And the registrar and the campus fire marshal had us sit only one student every 3 seats, something like that. So they were all spread around. So we can only have about 120 students maximum in that space. But over the years, it's changed, of course, and we brought more people in. It gave us a little bit of soft opening and the ability to get used to some of the things and some of the teaching styles that faculty will gravitate to and learn some of those lessons. The registrar, like it is probably at most campuses, we do have to abide by certain California guidelines, and we have to maximize the use of that space, which means the registrar at our campus is not going to book a class or a course that has about 350 students, 320 students. They're going to try to get as many students, make sure that every seat is as full as possible every single hour of the day. That makes it very hard for techs. This makes it very hard for anyone trying to provide support and maintenance because that room is always being used. Most of the courses that are being taught in there are lower division courses, some of the introductory courses. Actually about a year and a half ago, it just showed us that room is not so unique. It's also subject to vandalism. It's subject to a lot of the things that we may face in other areas of the campus when it comes to technology, people that may try to steal and try to work something out. None of the stuff is really something that anyone can still use at home, except for the computer, right? That's the one that we're trying to take out, and to do that, they vandalize the whole podium area. Campus infrastructure, as far as the physical plan and maintenance of the room, that's non-technology, they're very responsive. I will say that it's something that it's been very excited to see that I have a feeling that there was some deal worked out behind the scenes because anytime someone does ask for some level of support or something is not working that evening, it will be taken care of, unless something has to be ordered. But for the most part, it is very quick. And the help alert calls, we were talking about those earlier. It follows pretty much what we see all over campus. The first week, we'll get a number of calls because faculty are still getting used to the space, still getting to the technology, and then after that, it will just diminish. And the ones that do continue tend to be ones that are more on the, hey, there used to be a table back there that I could put the tests so students can pick them up. That table's not there anymore. Can you bring it back? What happened? Or why is it so cold in here? Or things like that. And it's something that we're not responsible for, but somehow we do become responsible for. And we do provide that support. Another lesson learned, the Solstice. I don't know how many of you are using the Solstice for wireless display. It works very well for iOS and also for Android. And faculty hate it at our campus. They struggle with the fact that they have to open another app, they have to download an app, sometimes if they're not prepared, and then they have to link to it. So they're used to using AirPlay at their house. Why can they not use AirPlay at the campus? So we installed an Apple TV, and now it's working fine. But now what we have is some of the people that used to be using Androids are not using that anymore. Instead, they've gravitated to just using Zoom. And they put the computer on Zoom, and then they display on Zoom. So that seems to be working okay. And lastly, there's just contacts. Any quick questions? Anything that I didn't cover that you guys wanted to hear about as far as support? Yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah, what's interesting is your comment about immersive solstice. So I'm a longtime AV audiovisual nerd of the greatest order, and when I touched immersive solstice for the first time, I thought this was the greatest thing I ever touched. I was just like, this is insane. Everyone's going to figure this out. Everybody's going to be able to use it. And
I have it here.
it makes me sad to hear that your faculty just are kind of like,
No, they just complain after complaint after complaint.
I'm sorry.
They had to add, the tech team had to add an airplane building into the switcher in the system. So. Okay, I will be here. And let's continue with Mark.
Thank you, Drew. All right. Many of you know me. Marc, Associate Director, Academic Technology. In my portion of this, if I was asked what we did, it would look really similar to what Israel provided, right? A lot of the tools would look the same. They'd maybe be a little different shape. But I wanted to kind of go over some of the planning we did prior to ever even swinging a hammer, buying tools, any of that kind of stuff, because I think that was really important. That set the stage for us to actually start to have this conversation of what would these things look like? What tools would we have? Because before this time, before we ever laid a brick for this building, we had nothing. There was nothing there. And we did a lot of, what do we call them at the time, that we did these little meetups around campus with different faculty. Did a lot of gathering, a lot of charrettes, we called them, to find out what they would want to see in spaces. And we worked with architect at the time, we worked with Bora, and we started to think about what mix of spaces. We knew that we had a desire from faculty that we had to be able to move a lot of students in a lot of back core classes through a space. We were really strapped for large venues on campus that we could move students in and move them out, right? And at the time, we said, okay, what would be the most efficient way for us to do this? And kind of this circle concept kind of emerged, that it was easy to bring them in. But most importantly, every faculty member said, well, we don't want to have these big, giant, long bowling alley type rooms when the students are so far away we can't interact with them. Everybody wanted to have a high level of engagement. And so what was the easiest way for us to make sure we had students that were accessible and nobody was further than about 20 or some feet away? So this round concept really came to be. In that process, we started kind of mocking this up, and we laid them out, and then some of the voices we heard were like, well, I don't have a class that's 500 students, right? And so we said, well, that's really interesting, but I want to use this, but I'll never be able to get into a room like this. Because as we went through it and started to describe what that would feel like, everybody's like, is there any place we can try this? How do we know? And so we quite literally went to the Memorial Union in the basement, and I don't have that picture with us, but there are some snapshots back somewhere on the web, where we literally taped out the area we had. And I'll tell you right now that the furthest seat in this room is further back than the seat in this large space. So if you're a student in this space in the back of the room, you're further away than you would be in our large room. And overwhelmingly, every faculty member came in and tried it. They walked around. Like, oh, yeah, they did a little mock-up of their presentation. They all said, this is great, I love it, but none of my coworkers are gonna want this. Everybody said that it's fine for them, but nobody else is gonna wanna do it, but I'm cool with it, let's do it. So it was interesting kind of takeaway from that everybody was willing to try it. And so we're like, all right, well, we're starting to get some really good data. And then the next big concern a lot of faculty have was the belief that you have to see my face. You have to see me. If you can't see my face, there's no way in hell you can learn, right? And so we went through all kinds of harebrained ideas to like camera mounted ghost tracker hunter things. People like, you need to see my face on that screen at all times. You're not gonna know how to learn. And it was amazing because we said, well, we'll put some cameras in. We'll put 4 cameras in, right? And most faculty thought that was to track them. It wasn't. It was so that Eric had something to do at some point in time, because we knew it was going to be an event space. And so we knew we were going to host events in here. And we didn't do a lecture capture per se, but we knew we had large classes that were going to do distance education and like. So we did 4 cameras kind of on the perimeter of that space. But they're tied to a central control room, right? And so as part of that, we knew like, okay, the complexity is kind of growing here. We knew that. We built these out. We let people try it. And we kind of like just marinated on that like headshot of the camera of the faculty up there. We didn't really want to build around that because it just seemed like it was going to be too difficult to support. Along the way, we knew that we were going to have different systems that were going to be unlike kind of anything we had. And the leadership at the university said, well, we can't just drop this kind of building across campus and leave it out there without support. So then it kind of started this whole culture shift, right? And as part of taking delivery, the academic technology, I think at the time we were still media services. Were we still media services then? Media. No, we had just changed academic technology. Geez. Right.
Sorry. For the record. We're media services. They changed their name to academic technologies.
Yes.
Then they said, no, it's academic technology. We are now in academic technology.
We've gone back.
Ask me next week.
Yes, multiple technologies now. And that we knew that because we wanted to be able to record people, that there was going to be a high level of complexity in the spaces, or so it was perceived. And so leadership made the decision that let's put the production folks and the support folks in that building and recognize that on the top floor, the 4th floor, It was at the time the ILRC. And remind me what it was, an Integrated Learning Resource Center, right?
Center.
And it was so that faculty who were going to be in these unique spaces had an opportunity to come in and try them, right? And when I say unique spaces going back, we didn't just do a round. We were crazy enough to do like Parliament room, and a small round, because we knew we needed to do small ones too, because we knew we weren't going to have 400 plus people everywhere. And so it led to a kind of a wholesale culture shift to putting the support there where that the people need it, because we didn't want to have to run across campus. We didn't have people who could run the 40 and like 4.2 across campus. So we need to make sure, and it led us down a whole new road of like, well, what does it mean to have a flexible modular infrastructure in space, right? Again, we'd never done it. We knew the future looks like net of some level. And so we plumbed the hell out of these spaces. There is a lot of category cable in here. If I showed you a floor box today, you'd see like 16, 24 cat lines in there. Because we knew at some point in time, we're gonna leverage that, and we're not gonna do like unique boutique camera lines and all this stuff. So it's plumbed for a network future, all these flexible spaces. And we knew kind of the physics of the room and looking kind of up and in them. They're all very tall ceilings, right? And so as we looked at technologies and solutions for them, we knew, well, it's not going to be easy to get up there, because the one thing we really wanted to get was a catwalk, and we didn't get it. So service, right? So we're down there, we're close, but I still can't get to the stuff. So we had to rely on leveraging network. So everything became network ready. And at that time, we were coming out of being over in Kidder Hall, old building, and more stuff was being put in the network. And we made the decision that every single thing in this building is going to have a network connection, right? So that when faculty are in there, we want to know, is that projector working? Is the computer there? Every little piece of it had to be connected to our Internet of Things, because we didn't want to have to be rolling people all the time for every aspect. Simple things, network power conditioners, being able to just turn something on and off remotely. We have lots of them. Every one of those projectors has one, right? And so and it started to kind of craft this new support structure and infrastructure, whereas we have a whole room of students that this is their mission, to make sure that any faculty member in one of these spaces can operate and reduce that downtime, like Israel mentioned, right? We're trying to reduce that downtime. And it was wonderful that leadership said, we're going to make sure we have that resource put in there. And so myself, Don and Mel, Chris, I think you were even here at the time, we started to think about those tools, right? So what can we actually put there? And then what tools do we need from the production standpoint? We knew they were going to be high impact spaces, right? And so we had never produced in the round on the regular. People have done it. So we built actually a support media services kind of room on there. People who have toured it, you've seen it on the 4th floor. And there are several stations where all of our large rooms are connected because we want to make sure we can record. But the distance education model, right? Some of these rooms regularly still tie into other campuses and do the traditional distance education. But our lecture capture piece of that, going back to the previous comment, we didn't really do lecture capture proper in these spaces in the way we were doing them in other classrooms. We did capture, but it was just, can you hear me and can you see my thing, right? Because even after we opened up, what fell to the wayside, faculty forgot that they wanted to have their face on the screen because it didn't matter. At the end of the day, they were still successful. And even if you were behind me, it didn't matter. Right? And so, but we still need to capture from the media services standpoint for the storytelling piece of it. So a little bit of interesting anecdotal pieces that we shifted not only from our support, but even our faculty changed after kind of putting these spaces in place, that what they thought they needed to have, turns out we challenged that assumption and it changed. We're showing the kind of the Parliament room here. My opinion, it's just another small variant of that round room, kind of squished on end. We didn't really do a lot of the debate piece of it. Like one side, you sit over here, you sit over there. But it was probably the more unique experience room. This is the one where faculty showed up and they didn't know where to go. Day one, we didn't have a lectern in there. It was set up to be very discussion heavy, and instructors panicked. They said, where do I stand? And they didn't know. They would show up day one and say, I understand you can sit where you want, but could you please all sit over here? And because they were not comfortable having nowhere to go and just being hanging out in the front. So we recognized day one, instructors do want to have something that they could actually touch down at, right? It's really important to have that. But I want to make sure I don't crush all of your time, John. I want to make sure I leave you enough. Give you a kind of picture of that small one, the smaller round room. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 rows deep. Very easy to have a conversation with students. We look at everything still, all the same approach, all online. We can monitor all that from our support center. Again, if I told you all the stuff we had, it looks very similar to Israel's pieces. We have some different flavors and different makes and models, but it kind of looks the same. We still do readiness checks to make sure they are still operating. We're kind of in this new phase where a lot of this is becoming normal now. Like we have these unique spaces, but I think faculty have kind of grown accustomed to it. What was once very, very unique has become ordinary. I'd lie if I said it was all beginner classes. In those round rooms, we've had math classes, we've had programming classes, we've had high technical needs classes in there. They don't need whiteboards, they don't need chalkboards, none of that stuff. And let's be real, even if they did have those things, most of them don't know how to use them correctly because none of them are right large enough for you to see it at the back of the room. So they've really embraced document cameras, that type of technology. There was a lot of concern about that. I'm not gonna have a whiteboard, I'm not gonna have a chalkboard. How can that be? I'm not gonna be able to teach. So it was nice to see that faculty leadership were willing to challenge what we thought we needed to have to be successful in teaching and learning environment, and that we could actively make something that's unique and say, we're gonna totally turn it upside down and be willing to try it. Now, there was a bit of fear that, what if this doesn't work? What if we do this and after a year, there's an uprising and the students are marching out here and nobody wants to do it? What are we gonna do? So going back, I'm sorry for going back and forth on the slides for you, but in this space, this flooring you see looks like concrete, but it's actually foam underneath of it. Because leadership said, well, if this fails and this blows up in our face, we'll come through and smash this out and put a wall up and just make big auditoriums. And so it was designed in a way we could actually flatten it down and turn it into like big box rooms again. So we kind of hedged that. We haven't done it yet. I don't think we're going to. Hope we don't. But we were very cautious and very like making sure we were deliberate, getting a lot of feedback along the way. But it was kind of a reflection of our culture of being willing to jump in and say, you know what, let's do it differently. The leadership said, let's give you the support. Let's build around what we have. Let's look forward and make sure that we're flexible for the future, and let's challenge what we think we need day in, day out. And now I want to kind of hand it over to John Dorbolo, unless you guys have questions for me with technical pieces.
Thank you, Mark. Here you go. I'll take that, give it to Lynne. Here. Okay, good.
And they're going to talk about some of the findings now of faculty, what actually happened in these spaces.
You can take this in case
And I will
anybody
throw
wants it. Feel free to chip in, everybody. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Israel. Lynne's here to join us in the conversation. We want to hear from you. So my topic is this. Yeah, you've heard about how to support it, how it was built, and et cetera. But why do it? Why do it at all? And you know, what have we learned about it, and where's it going? And so in the short period of time we got, I'm going to try to cover those topics. Okay. Lynne Hindman and Kim DeBacco from UCLA. She was at UCR and UCLA, and myself and others are part of the Geometry of Learning, which is a research agenda which started even before the building was built to try to understand how they go. Mark said that we built it so that we could tear out the floor and resize it if it didn't work. How would we know whether it was working or not? How do you know whether your classrooms are working or not? It's anecdotal mostly. We wanted empirical research, and that's what we went after. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So first of all, what I want to do is talk about distances. Why did we do this? Why did we do this at all? There was no precedent for it. It turns out that there was a version of this, 125 seats, sort of, at a dental college in Utah, and we're working with those folks too. But there was no other university building 600 seat room in the round. And what does it mean for a classroom to be round? There's even a controversy about that. Some people want to claim different kinds of rooms are round. The defining characteristic is the students are seated in concentric circles around the central podium where the instructor teaches, although they can leave that space. They're in concentric circles around the instructor, which means the instructor is surrounded. Okay? That's new. This room that we're in right now is kind of like the standard, it's the rectangle room. And that's the norm. It's been the norm for hundreds of years. There's good research on why that's the norm for a classroom. Okay? But what it means to be in this configuration is this. There's 120 seats in this room, 12 rows. Most of you are looking at the back of somebody's head. And that's what we've done our entire educational lives, is look at the back of somebody's head. But in this room and in these rooms, the students are looking at each other. They are looking directly at least half of the class, and to the sides they can see the faces of the other people. They are directly in eye contact with one another, and that affects them. It affects their behavior. It affects their engagement. And I was on the executive committee for the design of the building from about 2012, and the walking orders from the administration was increase engagement. And so we said, what does it take to increase engagement? Research shows that proximity or distance affects attention. And so we went with that. And what we figured out, and this is after we built them. So after this, or sometime today, if you want to go over and look at these rooms, it's just up the road. We'll take you over there. We'll be glad to do it. Next to the 600-seat round room is this room. It's a very nice traditional auditorium with a stage, a high stage, and a single projector. You see in the back there are screens, so the students in the back can see them, right? It's 17 rows, 400 seats. Great room. A lot of people like it, okay? But you are, as the instructor standing on the stage, 72 feet from the furthest one, okay? 17 rows. Actually, if you added, 5 more rows, it'd be like this, right? So this is what it looks like to the student, to be that far away. The little thing is there's the podium, so you can see where the instructor would be. And we often talk about the front row being the best row, okay, but when you're at the podium, the furthest student in the furthest seat on the front row is 45 feet. And here's how it looks at that student. All right, and here's kind of like the view of the students, and you can see them looking over, and there's the professor. Compare that to a 600-seat, 1/3 larger capacity, and the furthest you are is 9 rows. That's where Sam is now. That is my view as the instructor. I see his eyes, okay? And I'm 67 years old. That's pretty good. I can see the people there like that. But 72 rows away? No, okay? So there you are. You are 45 feet from the furthest student in the room anywhere around, okay? As opposed to 72 feet away, or 45 feet in the traditional room from the furthest student in the front row. Different characteristics all there. This is how it looks at that student. The instructor is large enough to be able to see their facial expressions, right? And there she is, right? And you can get up close with her too, okay? So these are things that we learned about the space and what it means to change the proximity, okay? But the other factor is the social factor, that the students are looking at one another. We know that this affects their behavior. So one of the things that we did was, the types of research we've done is institutional data on withdrawal rates and fail rates. Fail rates went down about 18%. Withdrawal rates went down 22% in the round rooms over the rectangle rooms of the same classes before. We've done interviews with all of the faculty who taught in the 600-seat room for the first 2 years. And we've done qualitative analysis of that. We've done location studies on where students are sitting in all of the round rooms, and we've got that data. And there's other work that we're doing besides. Lynne is working on a way of tracking movement at UCR. Eric Johns did that, and we're able to see how much an instructor moves around when they're in that space. All right, any thoughts so far to share? Okay. Am I underwhelming you? All right. Okay, so here's some things that we've learned. I'm not gonna go line by line. We're publishing papers about this. We've got a peer review. We're going out to a peer-reviewed journal, maybe the Journal of Learning Environments Research, with our qualitative data analysis. But we've learned that there's a before, during, and after of how you support faculty and students when you go to these spaces. And I think that some of this is generalizable to any kind of innovative space, but it's certainly true about our round spaces. I thought they were gonna have to change their teaching strategies and pedagogies entirely. Turned out I was completely wrong about that. Some of them didn't change anything. Some of them changed everything. And so it supported a lot of innovation, but it didn't require it for the people. They had to move differently, they had to interact with their class differently, but they didn't even have to change their slides if they didn't want to.
And
So
can I
those are benefits.
interject that for those that did take the time to adjust their way, their methods and presentations, that it phenomenal presentations. Anyway.
Yeah, thank you. And Israel already mentioned this, but one of the important things to do is get them in the room ahead of time. Get them in there. And when we built the building, even while the building was under construction, the faculty were going in there already trying the thing out. And this is what you need to do. The last thing you'd want to do with these round rooms or any other, weirdo room is get them in on the first day is the first time they try it out. But do you know what? All of your faculty are going to a room that they've never taught in before, no matter what shape it is. They're all doing that. And the first time that they ever experience it is the first day of class. And they have no idea what's going on. We've seen it over and over and over. And I would recommend that no matter what you've got at your university, that you encourage faculty to get into a class, to sit in a class and watch, and then to go into the room when it's empty and try it out, no matter what room that it's in, even if they think that they know what it is, because no two rooms are alike. And you've been in college, you know what it's like for the instructor to stand up there and go, I'm not sure what to do. And then they get flustered and angry and, no, get them started, get them going in, okay? And the mock-up was a kind of an example of that for us. So these are really important. You don't even have to use technology in these spaces. You really don't. That's not necessary to the teaching and learning. You can do many things here. All right. What do you do while you're teaching? Okay, the biggest factor for people is movement. AKA, where am I standing and who's looking at my backside? Okay, not everybody's worried about that, but some people are worried about that, and it's legitimate that they worry about that. Our experience is that the students don't worry about that. They don't care. Frankly, as far as we can tell, most of the students aren't even looking at the professor. They're looking at the media, they're looking at the notes, and they're looking at each other. And the professors believe that they're always looking at me. Of course, why wouldn't they look at me? They don't look at you, they don't care, right? They've got lots of things to look at. But the problem is, and Eric, you had something to say? Well, we would have a thingamajig.
I didn't use this in my room, I demonstrated it, and going back to your point about they're not looking at the professor, how many professors are doing their lectures in American Sign Language? The trick question, most of them are not. Where is their content coming from? It's coming from the audio. If you can hear, you're getting the lecture. And this is the same in every classroom on campus, whether it's remote or in person. And it was amazing how few people really thought about that until they were challenged by the round room.
That's right. And Eric's got a great point. One thing that we found, and I know this is true at UCR too, that the acoustics are extraordinary. And part of that is the roundness. You've got this big screen up there. I'll find that thing. Right? You see that big parabola? It's a parabola, right? And so the sound bounces off and back down to the other side. And it's so strong that when it's quiet, students can hear each other's pencils scratching like that. And so it's almost too much for some people. And so the sound is very, very good. We still use mics in the big room because some students are hearing impaired and et cetera. But it's,
It does create the opportunity for students to actually engage with one another. Because the sound travels so well, students can actually carry a conversation completely across the room.
Right.
Most people believe there's some type of amplification system going on in there, but there's not. It's just working.
So Mark, was that effect by design?
Yeah. Not. Yes.
it has, all these things, of course, have unintended consequences. So we're experienced that student engagement is up and students are very involved, particularly for classes that have multiple terms in the same room. They form a cohort that's very strong. It changes the social dynamic. We find that students, this is what faculty tell us, and we're observing it, that students self-regulate their behavior. Disturbing, or should I say disruptive behaviors are way down in those rooms, almost zero in those rooms, as opposed to other rooms which are very large, which have, like 27 rows that go all the way back in the balcony. You can guarantee that there's a student in the back that's going to yell out something disruptive at some point during the term. But in these round rooms, it doesn't happen. Do you have a hypothesis as to why not? Anybody? Somebody else. Somebody from not around here. They can all see them doing it. That's what Eric was saying. They can't. There's no place to hide. Okay, and actually, there's work around this from architecture, and we're thinking about what happens to a space when there's kind of like a public, a shared public vision that's going on. So we're seeing these really interesting effects. However, there are instances where, say, students that are on the spectrum sometimes find it overwhelming to be in that space because all of the eye contact is very difficult for them. There's students with sensory challenges that need some special help in making these go. So we need to pay attention to this and not just think that it all works. Also, I got here on try all parts of the room. What happened on that? Instructors leave the podium. I could exemplify this. I said that, Sam back there, that's the, the 9th row, but I can be in the 9th row in a couple of seconds. There's absolutely no way for 17 rows or 27 rows that I can be anywhere. Plus, when I do this, all the people in front, I just lost you all. I'm behind you. But that never happens. There's no place that the instructor can be in the room that they're not seen. And so some of these instructors are incredibly mobile. And the more freedom of movement they get, the more some of them want. The more some of them want. So some of them value that very highly, and they tell us about that. All right. To finish up here, afterwards, here's the things that we think are really important. Okay. Research the outcomes. Whatever you build, dedicate some serious empirical research to it. I mean, we're at universities that are like the hubs of research in the world. And yet, the most common attribute that we all share, which is the classroom, hardly ever gets researched. It just makes sense to me that that's the case. So I argued when we were, designing this, we were making a proposal for the Congress to help fund this, that we build a research agenda right into it and tell them that would be our assessment. It didn't really go anywhere, but we went ahead and did it anywhere. And Lynne and I and a couple other folks started right off the bat measuring outcomes in the spaces empirically. And this is what we're getting ready to publish. Another way to do it, okay, is to have the peers of the faculty show up and give feedback. Have them attend. that social commentary makes a lot of difference on how people respond. Feedback from learners is really important. Sure, we got the end of this term evaluation, but that doesn't tell us anything. What we need to do is iterative evaluations throughout the term where instructors are asking students, how is this working for you? Can you hear me? Can you see what you need to see? Is there something else I can do? If they're getting that kind of feedback, then it gives them what they need to be able to rethink how they're responding. And then do the kind of research that you can publish. That's what we're doing. So the most recent one was in the EDUCAUSE review. It was Eric Johns, Lynne, and myself, and Kim with the collaborative teaching and learning, where we're talking about how UCR and OSU are working together, also with the folks in Utah, to think this through on a what are we finding that's in common amongst ourselves, and where are we going next? We want to produce something called circles, which is the collaboratory investigating round collegiate educational learning spaces. There are I got 8 of them on here. I think there's about 10 institutions now that have these spaces. I will say with a point of pride that other than Utah, they've all been here and talked with us and studied it and went back and built their own versions of this. And they all have their unique elements to them. Okay? And so what we want to do is to produce a kind of like a collaboration, a summit of all of the institutions that are teaching and learning in the round in the way that I've defined it, concentric circles around a central space where students are looking at each other, so that we can start to pool together our resources and understanding about what it is that we've created. And it's the future, so I would ask you to keep an eye on the literature, and because you'll soon be hearing more about this concept as others go. That's what we've got today. Can we hear from you? Okay. Anybody?
That was one of our questions we looked at, and it really came down to the economics of it. And we want to have a little more high impact. We wanted larger screens in our spaces just due to the distance we had in there, and it just naturally fell to that outer ring perspective. We did kind of cost comparative doing the giant LED kind of screen like you'd see in an arena. To do it, and then just the technology at the time, it wasn't as cost effective as just traditional projection at that point.
And we just copied theirs, so it makes sense for us.
Anybody else? Anybody interested in seeing these?
You want it? Want the mic?
Yeah, what are the things about and I see one of my schools down the street from me now, University of Michigan, those guys, the round classrooms. I experienced it for the very first time when you guys first developed it, saw it, loved it, think this is going to be great. My concern is that the funding associated to get it to become a reality and the buy-in from all the stakeholders at a university like any of these universities listed here, could you address that? I mean, how does this start in its infancy? We know how it turned out. We know all the passion that went into it, but where did it begin with the stakeholders?
It began with deferred maintenance and a lack of classroom space. So before 2012, we had no spare classroom space, a deficit actually, and the deferred maintenance was going to the point where it knocked our bond rating down because you couldn't afford to take a building out of service. Some of these buildings are 150 years old. You couldn't take a building out of service in order to redo it. Once we built the building, 2,200 seats, we'd have a surplus of space. And we're doing deferred maintenance, reconstruction all over the place. So I think that was the real money driver of the thing. Also, our president at the time, President Ray, at some point said, I don't care what the legislature does, we're just going to do it. And he came up with the money. I don't know where he got it, but it was a bold thing. And I don't know about y'all, but Universities are not risky endeavors. They're very conservative, slow-moving things. With a new idea gets stopped pretty quick. But there was something in the air. There was some excitement about new pedagogies, not because of these round spaces, it was all over the place. And all of a sudden, faculty and administrators and staff came together and said, let's try new things. And it was just this like moment. I don't think it's here now exactly, but it was quite amazing.
It also feels like it was more cost effective. I mean, it is most cost effective to build a lecture hall than 10 smaller classrooms. But building a round lecture hall seemed like a happy medium because lecture halls seem so disengaging. You lose students when you're addressing the 420-row seat classroom. So it seemed a happy medium for us. At the time, our provost was very interested and very excited about what she saw at Oregon State. And we had leadership support more than anything.
And I would just to add on to what John said, deferred maintenance, yes, but the university's capital projects in the immediate past leading up to it, the first building to be built in a decade and a half was Kelly Engineering. Everything that was built on campus prior to Link was built for a purpose, not for the campus. So you have a science building, the Linus Pauling Science Center. We do not teach English in there, okay? Kelly Engineering, we do not teach, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This was the first campus building put on campus since, since the 60s or 50s or 60s. And that helped sell it and sell the new concepts because people were saying, if this isn't just for science, this isn't just for engineering, this is something that is going to, and that also enabled it to be funded because it wasn't just, we got to find the science donor. Or whatever. And I'm picking on science and engineering because we're building science and engineering buildings, which is great, but that just led to the deficit of seats for all the other colleges. So
I'll say one of the unintended consequences, and it kind of aligns with what you're going with, Doug, is it has become a tour stop for recruiting for students. We are in an arms race of sorts to get student recruitment, and when athletics has 4 or 5-star recruits, they are in that room. Other students who come by, well, they bring their parents into this room, and they are very proud that this exists. So it has become a bit of an icon on the campus itself. Lee, you had a comment.
When I did my orientation here, that was the room that they brought us to. They brought us to Link 100, and they did our whole welcome to campus. This is what you're looking at if you're coming to college. These are some of the kinds of classrooms that you'll be in. This is how classes will be taught in some of your classes. And that was one of the big, well, I heard other students telling their parents, I want to be in this room.
It sets the stage for the perception of the university, right? You hear that athletics is our front porch, but this is also like the academic front porch here, that the university is investing in experiences for students, and students see that and you're like, I want to go be there where they're putting their dollars in my experience, right? And so and you have to have leaderships that they believe that. They're not just going to wait and find out, that they're going to take a chance and do that and recognize that opportunity.
Okay, I think we've just been up there. I'll just say the very last thing I'd say, the predecessors to all of this, we didn't have classrooms to build this on, but it was theater in the round and music in the round. And if you go study the history of those, they're not that old either. I mean, they're ancient, but they're not that old in the modern world. Going back to the 60s, really, theater in the round. And the arguments against those at the time that they were instituted are almost identical to the arguments people make against teaching and learning in the round. There's very interesting symmetry. But the folks that, like R.G. Gregory, that pioneered theater in the round, was his whole concept was the democratization of the theater experience. And that was also true for the musicians that wanted to do that. And we have found that that is probably what is happening in these round spaces, is that students are feeling like they are directly part of the participatory aspect of their own learning, which is pretty remarkable. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it.